Thank you, Dr. Kaushik Basu, for an in-depth view on global economy and your insightful views on the roadmap for India to seize the lead. We will now have a question and answer session with Dr. Kaushik Basu. Those who wish to ask questions, please raise your hand. Call for the mics from the attendants. You're requested to announce your name before putting forth your questions. The time available for our Q&A session is only 10 minutes. So please keep your questions very short. We request you not to make long comments. Yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Yes. Thank you, Kaushik, for an excellent lecture. I wonder if you would like to elaborate a little bit on your suggestion of profit sharing, how it could work. Are you thinking of some kind of sovereign fund or profit sharing within businesses? Or what about people who have no access to capital? How can they benefit from it?
Thank you very much. I don't have full details, but this is broadly the idea. It's not just within firms will not do it. I'm actually, my primary focus on this was the United States, where every time there is a movement of some work abroad or machines come in, you get turmoil because people are being left out. Within a particular firm, you may not be able to handle because a firm may close down, workers are gone, and another firm comes in. So broadly what I think, and I haven't worked out any of the details, is that something like a sovereign fund or something like a 10% of the profit, the government keeps those shares in society, and that's the share that is kept for the workers who are getting displaced, for them to get it in some form. And see what would happen in a country like America. And in India, it's going to come to India later. India is a low-wage economy, but as machines encroach, we will have to think in terms of these things. What would happen is, now when work goes abroad, in America, say, one firm discovers that they can send work to India and save a lot on cost. There's a heartburn over there that, look, the jobs are gone. With the job, the wages are gone. Profits, however, do go up in the United States. If you have profit sharing, then workers will also partake in this, and you will not get the kind of protectionism that you're getting in the United States today, which was unthinkable actually. Even 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine this kind of xenophobic protectionism that you're getting in the United States. So for those reasons, I think policies of this kind of sharing you have to think of. Ultimately, this is going to come to India also, when workers tend to get displaced as more and more machines come in. And you will have to think in terms of ideas of this kind, where you have something which is shoring up the conditions of the relatively disadvantaged group. And these ideas, by the way, are not novel. There were academic economists, Marty Weitzman at MIT, had written a book on this some 20, 25 years ago. That time it looked like a completely academic exercise, working out the mathematics and algebra of this. But I feel this is the time where rich countries ought to think in terms of ideas of this kind.
Yes, yeah. Good evening, Professor Basu. Yeah, good evening.
Hi, Rahul Ahluwalia, a British diplomat. I head the economics section at the British High Commission in Mumbai. Thank you very much for the energy and enthusiasm with which you talked about this subject. I have a question to pose from the flip side. What can the international community do to support India's rise? Because a lot of countries out there want to bring capital and expertise and technology to India, and sometimes there are barriers to doing that, but we want to work very closely in supporting it. So what's your message to the international community? Thank you.
India is at a stage where the old-fashioned intervention, it still plays a role, which was aid. The importance of that is going down. India will need that for a few more years, but even at the World Bank, in my last months, we were talking in terms of China graduated a few years ago, that India is ready to graduate. But it's other kinds of engagement with the world that India needs. And the one of the most important ones is, of course, investment in India. You want to have foreign direct investment come in. But I'm aware that you can't appeal to charity, that we need FDI, so come in with FDI into our country. But that becomes a good alibi for industrialized countries to engage with India. That, see, these are the problems we face in India, which we would not face if we took the same investment to Ethiopia or if we take the same investment to China. This cross-country comparison enables India to change some of India's laws, some of India's institutional setting, which can then help. I would also say buy from India, but of course, why will you buy from India? Just because we say buy from India, there are other countries. But if you can work with India on these institutional changes, and India is today, of course, a mature country, so to that extent, it is not that you write down something on paper and say, do this. You need engagement, and India is in a position to do some very fine engagement. One of the reasons why I used to like the doing business indicator, even before I went to the World Bank, I was a user, is it's a cross-country comparison. Otherwise, you go to an Indian bureaucrat and say that, look, India is very slow and slovenly in giving these clearances. They would say, no, that's not the case. For this, you need time. The doing business indicator, you take 189 countries, exactly the same criteria, and you compare 189, you come out with a ranking. So there's very little scope for waving your hand and saying that you're not doing this right. Foreign countries, foreign powers that are well disposed towards us could engage with us in helping us bring that kind of information to the table so that we can provide an institutional setting whereby you will want to bring your investment into our country, whereby you will want to buy our products from our country because the products are so good.
Hello, good evening, Professor Basu. So my question is that what kind of...
Good evening. Sir, thank you very much for having this, to hear you on the 75th birthday of Lalit Doshi. Two questions. Mahatma Gandhi believed in Ruskin's philosophy unto the last, and Khadi and village industries and handloom sector. Unfortunately, the situation now is much different what he has contributed. So what is your view of these efforts being made to promote village industries and take the lead into economy? That is my one observation. The second observation is the loan defaulters of high defaulters and the efforts made in India to have extradition and all. Will the government really succeed seeing the laws of UK and the other country? And the third last is President Trump's USA restriction on H-1B visa. What impact it will have on high Indians returning back to India and the social well-being on their families and their lifestyle there? Could you please?
Yeah. On the first questions on Mahatma Gandhi and the Khadi, I feel in some ways Mahatma Gandhi's stress on this, I don't quite agree from the economy point of view. I'm a great admirer of Gandhi, but I take this view about every great thinker, every great person I have respect for. For that reason, I'm not going to agree with everything that that person says. I would say that for Tagore, I would say that for Vivekananda, I would say that for Gandhi. So I feel that when it comes to products and commodities, you will have to use modern technology. You can't actually stay with old-fashioned technology. So what you need to do is take some of the ideals. For me, the Gandhian ideals, which are admirable, is the ideal of the first importance being given to the poor. When you think of what can you do for a country, think of the poorest and the most miserable person you can imagine, and think of what will be good for that person. This is Gandhi. This is Gandhi much before John Rawls taking a philosophical position. When it comes to a specific policy, Gandhi should not be treated as a final word, because it's like building an aeroplane. You need engineers, you need details on that. But the current policy of stressing some of these products, I actually like it, but you have to do it in a modern way. You have to use modern technology, you have to use modern design and succeed with these. I'll give you one example of an Indian success. Weaving in Patan district in Gujarat years ago, I had gone, and these weavers, the Ahid weavers, who used to be very poor, doing their old-fashioned traditional weaving, became pretty successful, and the reason was, India was doing, I then visited similar enterprises in Mexico where they were not succeeding. India did something very clever. Brought ideas from the School of Design in Ahmedabad, took those modern ideas to these traditional weavers, blended the two, and provided marketing channels with the world, and they were flourishing. So I think it's a very good idea. Our products, which could be treated as the world's most fashionable products, you will have to use modern technology. You can't do without that. You'll have to use modern forms of trading and then take this idea further forward. Your second question, actually, I did not follow. I'm jumping to your third one on Trump, and if you want, you can ask that once again, and I'll come back to that. The H-1B visa, if the US continues, persists, and really stalls that, the big negative effect is going to be on the United States. I have no doubt about that. I feel one of the reasons why Japan, having done so well through the 80s, slowed down, is Japan was not making sufficient use of international expertise. It was trying to do things in a closed-door fashion. US was very, very open, and actually it's that openness that allowed United States to compete. And just imagine what will happen is if United States stops this altogether, let's do a mental exercise, stops that altogether, and makes others leaves the Indian professionals in India. In no time, other countries will begin to pick up these professionals. They will go there, they will begin to work out of that. And Germany, they will be bigger. France, they can be bigger. And US is going to be outcompeted on the product market. The effect of India on India, the initial effect will not be good. Because I feel a lot of people worry about brain drain, but the H-1B people who went there actually provided links with the world, which was very important. But India's critical period where we needed the link with the world is already behind us. We are very well linked with the world today. So we won't have huge damage. There'll be some short-term damage. Other countries will open up. For America, the loss is going to be very big. But I don't think it'll come to that because Americans will end up stopping Trump ultimately, I believe, or hope.
One more question. One more question. So continuing about health and education as two sectors which you mentioned, there's one other thing which has been missed out. Agriculture, you did mention that technology was to be incorporated into it, and therefore if we put in all the fillip as grow in India, when we are talking of only make in India, if you could make grow in India also, then it definitely will make a difference and a positive contribution to the nation. Yeah, my name is Alok Dotekar. I'm part of the Shantiraj team which is here.
Yeah. So agriculture is extremely important. You want agricultural productivity to rise, and you want for that, you need investment in agriculture. One thing, however, people at times make a mistake is to think of, they expect the agricultural sector will become a bigger share of GDP. That, unfortunately, will not happen. That's not the way in which countries grow. For India, at the time of independence of the GDP, about 40% was agriculture. Now it is down to about 14%. China, it's the same. You take all countries, and the reason is, of course, that in people's consumption basket, agricultural product, as a country becomes richer, agricultural products become a smaller and smaller share of the consumption basket. So one thing we have to face up with is that agriculture as a sector will become smaller. But you can be productive, you can be, and it's a critical sector. It's a small sector, but it's a critical sector. It can bring a country to a complete halt. So I feel India needs to do much more for that sector than India is doing right now. It's a small, but it's a bottleneck sector. It can strangle the full economy. So even if it becomes a smaller share, you need better fertilizers, you need better investments so that you're not susceptible to weather fluctuations. So yes, agriculture sector is a vital sector. It will become smaller, but it needs much more activism over there than India has been putting in.
So I think we have to stop here. We normally ensure that we close in time.
Thank you very much. On behalf of MIDC, Mr. Anna Sahib Misal will give a memento to Dr. Kaushik Basu. On behalf of the Lalit Doshi Memorial Foundation, I request Mrs. Pratima Doshi to present a memento to Dr. Kaushik Basu.
Okay, okay. So
The two organizations.
Yeah. I can come there. Yeah.
May I now request Mr. Anna Saheb Misal, Joint CEO MIDC, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored and privileged to get an opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this pleasant occasion of the 23rd Lalit Doshi Memorial Lecture. Every day is a meaningful day, and August 4 is indeed a very memorable day, as it's late Lalit Doshi sir's birthday. Late Doshi sir's memories, always inspired by his great administrative work, and gave us message to be happy and smiling. Our chief guest today, Professor Dr. Kaushik Basu, Professor of Economics and C. Marks Professor, Cornell University, and former Senior Vice President and Chief Economist of the World Bank. Professor Basu sir's today's lecture on a very important topic, the global economy, what can India do to seize the lead? I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for his very explanatory and inspiring lecture. Sir, you are such an inspiration to us, and we are going to learn something new and interesting. I may like to express our sincere thanks to Honorable Sri Sumit Malik sir, Chief Secretary to Government of Maharashtra, for giving an excellent speech and valuable guidance. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Mr. Bharat and Mrs. Pratima Doshi for the perfect logistic support and guidance. I also extend my thanks to Mr. Arun Bongirwar sir for his enormous cooperation in the organization for this program. My sincere thanks to the print and electronic media for their presence and giving excellent coverage of the program. Last but not the least, all the members of respected audience for being present in large numbers. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Before we conclude today's program, on behalf of the trustees of the foundation, I wish to once more thank all of you for joining us today. I request everyone to kindly join us for refreshments organized outside the hall to your right side. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.